Good morning.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Morning.
Living the dream. Another day, another dollar, maybe.
Another early Monday morning, huh?
Yeah, another early Monday morning.
I'm
What's
so happy it's 4 o'clock in here. I just already have almost a day finished, right? So
Yeah. And I was going to say, you're sipping on either wine or beer while we're sipping on coffee. But
no, I just
think
took
you
a
have
coffee
you have-
just before the episode, just needed. But actually, I was considering to drink it during the episode because you always do. But before it started, I already finished it. So
yeah, that's the issue I have too, is like I get into the office and I'm like, all right, got my coffee and ready for the show. And then the coffee's gone before I even get on. So it's like, oh, great. Now I'm just going to sit here wanting more coffee. But yeah, how's your guys' week?
Not too bad. Just a lot of interesting things happened last week, but more to come on all of this, of course.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it's mixed feelings. In the U.S., it seems like restrictions are lightening up a little bit. Numbers are getting a little bit better, but then I talked to someone in Spain or in Ireland, and it's going the wrong direction, and lockdowns until May. So who knows what is going on? Like I've held consistently, it's easy to plan for next week and next year, but everything in between is just virtually impossible. So
yeah, I agree. It's getting I feel like we're seeing people get confident in booking because we've seen people like book a year ahead, but then all the last minute booking trends are still happening. Like people aren't seeing like the big pace or pickup until like the day before arrival or even a couple hours before arrival. So yeah, I think it's been pretty interesting to see how it's all playing out. And of course, tying it to today's episode title, is the industry ready for this big burst of revenge travel? Because nobody's gotten to travel the last 12 months. So be interesting. How's things over there in are you in Poland, right? Or in Netherlands?
no, I'm in Poland. Well, the plan was to be in Holland this week.
Okay.
But it's still, you see a bit, my parents were scared a bit. It's like the long journey and then everything. Still this stays a bit, right? It's still a bit it's still a bit scary. You just have to stop on the way. In Germany, you can't stop. The hotels are closed, so you have to drive it in one go. I would try to avoid flying where needed. So I don't know. I was planning to go there. At the end, I didn't go. Didn't see my parents for over a year now, right? So those things you just start missing now. And for a while, I was okay. Just is accepted the situation how it is, and we go through it. But now it takes so long, and I'm just more than ever just want to go on holiday. And what is fun to see actually when you're following a bit the social media, it looks like all Dutch people, like, well, not all, but many Dutch people there in Dubai. When you see Polish people, I see them all in Tulum. I don't know, maybe it looks like if they're just choosing, they're moving to different spaces and they're different areas in the world. Okay, I don't know what's about if we see around in the US, but you see what I see that when I follow some people in the Netherlands, I see them all ending up in Dubai. And I see if we're looking at, for example, some Polish celebrities or whatever influencers, they're all in Tulum. So I don't know, maybe you got some people just moving from one country with the whole population, just move to the other one and just shift a bit from cold weather to hot weather somewhere else. I don't know, but it's fun to see that there you see some growth that is actually pretty location specific actually when you look at the population. So it surprised me more and more I see this. I don't see Dutch people in Tulum, I see them in Dubai, and Polish people, I don't see them in Dubai, I see them in there. So interesting to see. Maybe it's a new trend that we just go all of in one nation. Let's go, this nation goes there, and we're shopping nations. I don't know. Maybe it's a new trend that we'll follow.
Probably has something to do with that too. Dutch with higher incomes able to afford Dubai. It's a very expensive city, whereas Tulum is pretty inexpensive, and the flight's definitely the worst part of it. So yeah, it is cool to see or interesting to see like where different regions or different countries tend to go to. The Germans to Spain, for example, or the Brits to the Canaries.
Yeah, no, but you see a lot now, and that's actually surprising me. It's like when it was maybe more split and divided in many countries. Indeed, what you said, you can see indeed the German Ghost, for example, or the Tenerife, or you see them moving to the specific countries when they're meeting again, maybe speak their own language, and still German can still have the bratwurst. I don't know, but I know you can see this move, and then it's interesting to see actually that nationwide they're choosing to go to another country when they can see their own nationalities again. So maybe it's a new trend. We'll see. If yes, we'll discuss it at a different time again.
Let's say next week's episode we'll do that. But I think what we'll do is just right now get right into the Bidruption report, and then what's with all the noise, and we'll kick it off.
Yeah, this week is a different kind of startup. We're discussing startups who are raising hundreds of millions of euro. This one is different, but I think is really worth to be mentioned. I want to mention Kitro. Actually, I saw Naomi Mackenzie speaking, I think 1.5 years ago on the World Tourism Forum conference. And actually she's explaining like, okay, how restaurants could actually reduce food waste. I think it's really important to be said. That actually is really important. And of course, there's a lot of competition out there, but I think every initiative is good. And I was trying to find some numbers, what they actually achieve. And because of the technology, they're building some hardware which you can install next to your bins and actually it scans actually the meals you're throwing away. So it really helps you making decisions. So it makes you, okay, I can see that you're throwing away a lot of meat, maybe order less meat, I can see, etc. So they give you a lot of analysis and data. So it's all focused on data analysis and actually advise you what to do. So you can actually optimize your pricing, you can optimize your inventory. I think they have 60 places now which implement their technology. But it was really impressive that they saved over 250,000 meals. So imagine this food waste we all know like how much food is wasted every year. And I think it's really important companies like Kitro, which is located in Switzerland. And again, there are many out there that they're going to be used. So I hope when the restaurant goes open again, they're looking more in sustainability, in food waste management. So again, Kitro, congrats by being the startup of the week. Next week, I got a really interesting one as well. So for sure, check next week. When I look at the events, actually, it's still those months is a bit more quiet. I just got an invitation to teach, to give a masterclass for over 1,300 students. I think somewhere next week or week after. So you can see this starting a bit now. Now we can see within Bidroom, it's busy. It's actually, you can see more partnerships are more willing to partner than before. So it's a nice period. I think everybody's now settled a bit. January was always a bit like restart. I think now everybody's full speed, and let's go full speed next to the grandma of Golden.
That was a fast version of Grandma this time. So there's a really interesting article that came out last week, kind of riding the coattails of Airbnb's historic IPO. And that was a rumor that Barry Diller of Expedia might be considering rolling off Vrbo for its own IPO. And there's definitely some pros and cons to doing this. Airbnb's valuation went from somewhere in the 30 billion to about 80 billion, and I think it's continuing to rise since it IPO'd. Expedia bought Vrbo for less than $4 billion, I think about 4 years ago. And it's certainly worth more now, especially during the pandemic, during the crisis, as the Vrbo brand has been pretty much all over the place, whether it's TV or social or any internet ads. They're out there serving primarily North America. But if they can spin off Vrbo and get $15-20 billion from it, then that's a pretty big plus. But then it probably hurts the Expedia valuation and price. So in this case, I'm sure they're doing the math to make sure 1 + 1 = 3. And if it doesn't, then it probably makes sense to keep it in-house at Expedia. For perspective, Tesla trades at more than 1,000x multiple, where GM, one of its biggest competitors, is trading at about 18x. And would we see that same effect with Airbnb and Vrbo? I don't necessarily think that would be the case. I think Vrbo would have a stronger brand than GM, for example, but it's certainly not going to be trading at 1,000x multiple like a Tesla. So it'll be interesting to see the news coming out with this decision over the coming weeks or months. It's probably an opportunistic thing. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen during COVID. Otherwise, it probably just makes sense to hold on to it with the Expedia brand. But time will tell. And it was an interesting headline that caught my eye. So I'm sure a lot of people are taking a look at it.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking a look. I'm just thinking of the fact of owning zero property and having that type of crazy IPO. Just the overall effect. And so to see Vrbo go that route would be quite interesting, because we've kind of talked before the recording was, Vrbo's not really like an international brand in the sense like Airbnb is. A lot of people in different countries use Airbnb a lot more, and it's more known. So I'm kind of curious to get your guys' thoughts, but also go into the question like of the topic for this episode as well.
It's a generational thing. I've used all the platforms in various capacities. My parents have only ever booked on Vrbo. My brother has probably only ever booked on Airbnb. So it's really a generational gap. And Vrbo, especially with longer stays and work from homes and all the trends that have been going on right now, have capitalized really well. Nicer houses, higher take rates or higher rents lead to Vrbo doing really, really well during the pandemic. So if they are going to roll off, it's probably got to be sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And I think they're hammering home where they're good at, which is the family traveler, which is, the people looking for destination markets with single family homes, maybe a pool, again, higher price rate than a urban 1-bedroom condo and, on an Airbnb platform. So it'll be interesting to track. There historically has been a clear line of delineation between a Vrbo traveler and an Airbnb traveler, but we'll see in the future how those blend or mix, or who starts to grab what market share from one another.
I'm curious on inventory.
You said, right? You made the comparison with Tesla. You can see if you're looking at the revenue of Tesla compared with GM or the other car brands, it's minimal. But if you look at the valuation and the value of the market cap of Tesla, it's much more than all them together. And if Vrbo is not popular here in Europe at all, I think also with this whole story around Airbnb, they did extremely well. It's the typical startup story, the way they started. It's a completely different image, right? It's a San Francisco story. This whole startup image, and you were looking for they had an Airbnb, they don't rent to somebody else. It's a story, and I think people buying the story, and the story of Vrbo is like, oh, it's sold to Airbnb, it's sold to Expedia, and I try to make some money with IPO. So I think it's completely different, the approach, and I think you can see with everything is, you see some trend now in the US when people starting heavily, or in a game shop, right? It's more like a trend, and people are following, and it's overhyped. And I think it was the same, of course, what happened with Airbnb, because if you're looking realistically, the valuation is insane. Still, if you're looking at the current share price, it's insane, right? Is it really worth so much money? I don't know, can be discussed. But on the other hand, I think it's all because people, when they're investing in something, they just want to go, tomorrow must be more worth than yesterday. And that's what they see with Tesla. It's go giving up. It's a trend, and up and up and up. And
what would you call a trend, Michael? Because Tesla has been at 1,000. They've averaged 1,000x multiple over the past 5 years. Is that a trend? How long does a trend last? Because that seems to be steady. Not a trend for me would be 6 months or maybe a year, not 5.
A long trend. That's right. No, but then again, and they see it still going up. They say, okay, if I see it going up for 3 years or 2 years, it might go up then tomorrow as well. And that's what people see, right? So at the end, once there will be to a collapse somehow, and it will be the same, I think, also with Airbnb. It will go down once, right? It still quite goes up a bit. I think it eventually will go down. It could be massively. It's still, I think it's all around, so much around image. And it's the same when we were Bidroom fundraising in the beginning. It's in the image, storytelling, and everything. And the storytelling of Airbnb was amazingly, right? The valuation was much higher than before they went. When with IPO was much higher than before COVID, when there's almost zero, less bookings. They still have some compared with the hotels. So I think still storytelling is really important. So I think we should move soon to the main topic of today.
But I was just gonna say the one thing I would like to compare from both platforms is the amount of inventory, because I know Vrbo is the whole home rental type style, the more, I guess, quality product, and then versus Airbnb, where people can do multiple rooms in their house, or they can do a single small apartment or the condo, and there's all this big variety. So I wonder the comparison to what the amount of inventory versus quality of inventory, compared to the IPO and a few other things like that, the valuation. But that's just me thinking from both perspectives of hotel and vacation rental.
Take if one room on Vrbo is $1,000 and one room on Airbnb is $200, it's even if they have 5 times the inventory, is it the same? Is it equal? Yeah, exactly. So interesting take. I'm not sure anyone's
I put Morning Hospitality a bit more, so then we can see what's the valuation of this show. Think it makes sense?
1,000x multiple for sure.
Yeah,
that was next. Well, so this is a cool topic, because when we were talking prior to the recording, it got me thinking of a conversation I have a friend with in Australia, who they depend on for their workforce for a lot of restaurants and cafes and hotels and other hospitality venues is from overseas workers, people that are on visas, people that are either with schooling programs and a bunch of other stuff. But with the way that their country is right now, they just have no workforce. There's just no one. People are starting to open up, but they can't hire because there's really nobody there. So it goes to the question of we can apply it to the globally, not just Australia, but with the skeleton crews that a lot of hotels and restaurants are running on. Not so much on like the drive-through capacity, because a lot of, I think, restaurants are doing pretty good if they're Starbucks or a few other drive-through locations that people, at least in America, can still do their service and not dine inside. It'll be interesting to see if we're ready for revenge travel. Will we know when revenge travel is going to take off? Will it just happen and we'll wake up and we'll have thousands of people or hundreds of people outside our doors? Like, what's that look like? And so I'm kind of curious to hear your guys' thoughts on, is this something that we can predict? And if so, how can, venues, hotels, restaurants prepare?
Well, I think, as you see, a lot of people moved, right? A lot of people work in the restaurants. They had to find a different job. They're just working maybe in healthcare, maybe in different sectors. So a lot of people stepped away out of hospitality. I think before, it was 1 out of 10 people worked in hospitality. Most layoffs or fires was actually in hospitality. So I think it will time for his recovery. Maybe if the restaurant goes open slightly, less guests could be in the restaurant, it will help a bit. But I think it's going to be challenging, and especially the people who were serving for years, who has great experience in hospitality, and this will be challenging. You might see a new shift. There will be a new generation of people in hospitality, and I think it will be challenging. I think because you see before a lot of professionals as well, right? It was because it's a profession. You have to be the way you're just treating your guests and you're serving them. I think it's a specialty. It's a profession, and now you might get people who just never did before, or just gonna have to be skilled in a few days. And I think there will be a lot of reskilling and upskilling. Well, we mentioned was, of course, Hotel.co for example, as a platform.
Yeah.
I think, but you see also, if you're looking at the more traditional schools, for example, when you really had people going to a campus for years to really see how to serve them, how to put the cutlery, those people are just out of business. And those schools are also many of them are closed now as well. So I think the professionals in hospitality, many of them will disappear. So I don't know, it might be differently than before, and especially in hotels. And then I give the word to Golden. I think what you see in some shift in hotels that people taking multiple roles. And I think that might happen as well, right? You see more in restaurants, it's more difficult, but I think in hotels, the people taking a general role, they're helping with serving guests. Meanwhile, they're moving maybe to the restaurants in the evening, and meanwhile they can bring the room services needed. So there might be some changes there. But yeah, I think the hospitality sector is going to be completely different. New people.
I think it's a two-part question. There's no doubt that it's going to return, and then when it does return, it's not going to ramp up equally as fast as it ramps down, but it is going to ramp up pretty quickly. It'll go from 10% occupancies to 40 to 60, and we probably won't get much past that for a little while until business travel has really returned also. But it's a two-part question in that the skilled labor is going to be the challenge to replace, right? Saw an article this morning about airlines worried about pilots. They downsized their pilot base, whether it was early retirements or just furloughing them permanently, cutting them, or what? Like, who knows where these pilots are going? Like, you're a pilot. There's not much else that the rest of
the same with your pilot. You're spending hundreds of thousands of euros or dollars in your education to become a pilot.
Yeah, but I
would say
take a GM of a hotel, right? They've learned this for many, many years. You don't just walk out of school and become a GM.
Yeah.
And where have they gone? Wherever they can get work. And then what happens now that they're employed somewhere else, but there's no GM when this hotel opens up? So the second part of it, skilled labor is first, to keep an eye on how many of those come back. The next is how many jobs have been cut or replaced by technology.
Yeah.
And I think hotels are moving towards a contactless check-in, which means you probably don't need 3 or 4 front desk agents at a time working. So it'll be interesting to see how hotels come back for check-in. I'm traveling this week for work, and I'm staying in a rental, and I've already got my app to unlock my door, and I'll know my room number a few hours before check-in, and I'll just walk in and walk straight to my door. Like, it's a little bit flat. It blows my mind that hotels haven't done that yet.
Well, I think
for the whole COVID period already, or they just implemented now, because that's what's happening, right? You see a lot of accommodations, they move into contactless, etc. I think it's accelerated.
Yeah. So I'm going to Dallas, and I've stayed with this one group. Actually, I think they're part of Bidroom, the Guild. It's right by our office. I've stayed with them for 3 years since I've been at NoiseAware. It's steps from our office. So it's always been like, here's your room, here's your access code. But now it's a step better, where I just literally use my phone to unlock it. There's no access codes. There's no touching other keypads or anything. There's no front desk or anything to walk into. It's, here's your room, here's how you get in. Like, picture, this is the door you walk into, this is the floor you press, this is it's super, super detailed, and it's foolproof, right? Like, as long as you open it up and follow it step by step, you're getting into your room, and you don't have to wait in line, or you don't have to go interact at a front desk.
Well, this is the thing, like we've talked about.
Right. I think you'll more and more see that you can order by your own phone, or there's a tablet, but I think ideally with your own phone, you're scanning the QR table on the QR code on the table, and you're ordering your food. And so, yes, you might need less people as well, because in this case, nobody has to take the order, just making the order by yourself, and they just deliver the food, and maybe even pick it up somewhere in a central place close to the bar, because you get informed. So it will change, right? I think at the end, you might do the complete operation with less people, especially if they're also implementing those kind of things. So I think you'll see a difference as well in the restaurants. The other hand is charm, right? It's still the charm, right? If you want to go to the restaurant, it's still the charm that somebody's coming to your table to ask you what kind of food. You ask them, okay, what do you recommend? Whatever. This personal interaction is something you're still going to miss, I think, when they're going to be replaced by phones
Well,
or QR, thing like this.
I'm seeing a change. Like, so this, we're talking about, less front desk, less, human interaction, or less, staffing, in the sense of just overall automation with tech. And then also how many people that were laid off or furloughed, will they return to hospitality? Will they even consider it if they've been unemployed or, been in a different career or job field this whole time? Who knows? But my thing is, like, now I think it gives us a perfect opportunity to get back into that kind of concierge experience where, yes, we don't have, maybe as many front desk people working, but we have people on standby ready to go that do have that great local recommendation, that are able to help you with, certain things at the building, or even just getting a simple Uber or order delivery, or who knows, Instacart. We have that more concierge service that's able to be provided. I'm hoping that's the way, because as a front desk operator myself, or a previous front desk operator, is that I wish I had more time for that type of interaction versus the check-in, the transaction, the all these other things that we've talked about.
But can't someone like that do the same thing for 5 different hotels and work from home and just answer these calls, the guest calls, or texts or emails?
I think it could be a hybrid. It could be both. I think it should be, there should always be at least one person on property. I've checked in hundreds of people by myself on accident because, we forecasted wrong, and we had, 10% occupancy at a 700 hotel room property. And then all of a sudden I'm by myself that morning, and there's a convention last minute that no one in sales told everybody. And we had hundreds of people check in, and I was by myself. So it's like, I think there should always be that, there's always that one person that can be there and be that go-to for when things are slow. And in case
then you don't have to worry about it, right?
I disagree. I disagree.
You're the best at multitasking anyway, so you could handle.
I disagree with that type of volume being automated. I don't know if it's possible, especially when there's lack of communication from different departments. But the regular day-to-day, I think a lot of it could be automated. A lot of it could be like how vacation rental.
A book comes in and they get their room key and their access and the instructions on how to check in. Like whether it's one person or 1,000, it's automated and doesn't matter the volume.
No, exactly. It just depends on, especially the property, and but vacation rentals, for property managers, we do that all the time. We have guidebooks. We have, the automated lock systems that integrate with reservation and PMS. That's a common practice. That's kind of if you're not doing that, you're.
Some places you just go because of the hospitality, right? I mentioned the restaurant is something you just want to go. You don't want to use the QR code. The whole experience is an evening out. If you just needing your room because you just need it for sleep, you don't care. You just with the phone check in by it itself. Like what Michael said, he has to go for work. It's not for the experience. It's just more for convenience. Then it's different. But when you still go and you just we discussed before about Tulum or about Dubai. If you really go to a summer destination, is the whole experience and you're looking forward to. Then you must be kind of an interaction with people around there, because as you go to a different country, you just want to have some interaction, the culture and everything. So I think this should not be replaced, even though it might be possible. I prefer to not do it in those kind of places. If it's a city hotel, just want to sleep for a night, it's for business. Okay, it makes sense. So I think there's also depends a bit of the property, but I don't hope it in restaurants, what I mentioned, that this will be replaced. And maybe already a nice teaser to next week before I forget to mention. We talk about changes of roles. The startup of next week, so for sure tune in, is actually a former GM of a famous hotel in London. And actually he started a startup actually in COVID period. And now he has built something amazingly. I can't tell what, so tune in next week. But it's another example, right? That people just moving, they give the opportunity to they're starting their company, they move in different area. It's still in hospitality, but moving from being a GM to something different. And that's what you see now as well. So indeed, you're going to miss people soon when recovery will start.
Yeah, and how many people that are furloughed, when they get asked to come back, actually go back? That's another question mark, right? So
yeah,
we'll see.
I'm curious if anyone's listening to this show or watching it. If you're in the industry and been furloughed or laid off, are you going to go back? I think we should find a way to do some massive survey, but I wish we could. Actually, I know of. I'll find a survey that's already been done. I know a company, so we can find out the details. Probably see what people say. But yeah, crazy times. Hopefully hopefully the answer to the question of will the industry be ready for this revenge travel is yes. And hopefully the answer to the question of will the staff, be prepared? Will, restaurants and other things like that be able to get their solid team back? Fingers crossed, and hopefully yes. Yeah.
Hope so.
All right, guys. Well, we're coming up on that 30-minute mark like we always do. Anything last that you guys would like to leave the audience that's viewing currently live or listening in later? Anybody? Going once? Twice?
Well, I'm looking forward to next week already. So it's fun this Monday morning. So next week, another nice startup. And it's so much happening nowadays. And again, I hope things will recover. And it's still a crazy period in here. You see it getting a bit more loose in Europe. Let's hope then the trend will go down, less cases, and fingers crossed, and see you all next week again.
All right. See you guys next week.